Welcome everybody to Seattle Bike Blog TV. I am your editor, Tom Fuculoro, and I am joined by Anthony Palmieri of West Seattle Bike Connections, and we are here today to talk about some surprise news. I think caught almost everybody completely by surprise that there's cracking on the basically the basic structure of the West Seattle Bridge, the upper bridge, and that has alarmed engineers at the Seattle Department of Transportation enough that they have completely closed that bridge to all traffic for an indefinite period of time. They don't know how long it's going to be closed. They don't know how much it's going to cost, and this has kind of thrown the entire neighborhood into a very tricky situation. The low bridge, which if you're biking a lot, is not closed. And so that suddenly makes riding a bike one of the best ways to get to basically, if you're in West Seattle, to get across the Duwamish River. I asked Anthony to come on and maybe talk to me a little bit about, as someone who lives in West Seattle and is an advocate for bicycling in West Seattle, like what does this closure mean for the neighborhood, and maybe how can we, work together with neighbors to help people who are not used to biking, give it a shot, because it might be kind of their best option. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so I guess let's talk big picture first. This is kind of a big deal, right?
It's a major disruption. Absolutely. I mean, this is coming from somebody who, bikes every single day. I also drive a car too, and it's going to be a huge hassle for a lot of people for a long time.
There is a low bridge that opens for boats, so they call it the swing bridge, and because instead of being a drawbridge, it swings kind of side to side, and
Right.
has a tendency to break, which let's hope it doesn't break anytime soon, because we really need it to be fully operational right now. But sometimes it'll get stuck open, and you just can't. If you're biking, you're just kind of out of luck for until they fix it.
And we dealt with that last year.
Yep, and it's a huge hassle. But so that bridge is supposed to be designated for transit, freight, and emergency access. Is that just do you think that's because it would just get swamped?
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-lane bridge, one lane in either direction. So it's big, but it certainly doesn't have the capacity of the West Seattle Bridge, which is 6 lanes on both sides of it at its widest point.
So I guess that's what I'm trying to focus on. How can we help? It's this because we're in this weird time. Usually we would say, we'll take transit. Everyone should take transit who can. That's our best way through situations where suddenly driving personal cars around isn't going to work because there's just not enough road space for them.
Right.
All of a sudden. But that's suddenly not a very appealing option because the outbreak is requiring people to stay at least 6 feet apart. Don't touch, communal surfaces,
Right.
And both of those things are really hard to do on a bus or even the water taxi. So, transit's still going to operate, but it seems like biking is now probably a really important transportation mode. I mean, it was
I think
already
so.
important, but now it's suddenly vital.
Right.
So I guess so you're with West Seattle Bike Connections. What have you all been talking about? Kind of what is your plan to respond to this?
I think it kind of falls along with our messaging we put out, other times, is if people are wanting and willing to pick up a bike for commuting, any number of us that ride every day are willing to make times to meet and arrange folks to, show them that it's actually a pretty easy thing to do once you plan and kind of get used to it.
So you're still offering to ride along with people, or kind of how's that?
Absolutely. The West Seattle blog is our neighborhood blog that I think a lot of people follow quite a bit here, and we'll post on there like, hey, if you're interested, when traffic things do come up, reach out to us. And some folks have emailed, and I think some of those folks have turned into regular bike commuters now. So
That's amazing.
we do it every day. It's like, hey, if you're coming through at this time, I'll be here, and I'll show you how to ride downtown.
And so if someone, is it possible for someone to email you questions, or, like let's say someone's just got, I don't know how do I navigate this area? Like, is there someone who will answer the question? Or
Absolutely.
so let's talk big picture first about biking to West Seattle, and let's just say we're going downtown for the sake of you know ease. That's where most other bike connections come together anyway.
Right.
So let's say we're going downtown. It seems like once you get to the trail, you can figure it out from there. Would you say that that's?
Yeah, it's a pretty straight shot once you get there.
It looks
There's
very
really
confusing on a map.
it does. I mean, I'm looking at Google Maps right now, and it's there's a lot going on there, but it's like anything else you do at once, and it's just kind of becomes
Yeah.
automatic after that.
Well, yeah. Let's walk through it. So, we'll talk about how to get here in a second. But let's assume you've already made it to that trail conjunction. Underneath the bridge where the
Right.
Alki Trail and then the trail up to Delridge come together. Let's start there, and then let's walk through that endpoint
Sure.
down downtown.
Yeah, and then once you go under the bridge, and I mean it's a pretty straight shot. You get right to the Spokane Street Bridge, cross over. I think one point of maybe confusion for new riders is, do you then shoot across Spokane Street through the crosswalk to get to the other side of the trail, which is on the north side, or do you do the loop around the jug handle, depending where you are in the country, uh, go under the bridge to come back out over that way?
And do you have a preference?
I generally take the jug handle and go loop around, just because it's one less major road crossing I have to, potentially deal with, and interact with cars. So it eliminates at least one hazard there.
So it's kind of confusing because it feels like you're turning around and going the wrong way. But
It
you just
is.
have to know that it loops around. And then once you do it once, you'll get it. But
You got it down. That's right.
yeah. Okay. All right. And then you got to cross a couple driveways, which is a little confusing, but you'll figure it out. It's pretty clear where the trail goes. It's just
Go across. There's another. I think it is actually a bridge that goes over the Duwamish Waterway there, next to the Spokane. Is it End Street and Park? I think that's right there.
yeah, the fishing pier.
Yeah, the fishing pier, right? Yeah, then that kicks you ultimately out onto East Marginal Way, where you just hang a left at the light. That's what I do in the morning. Some folks continue on the sidewalk and will cut across East Marginal when there's an opening. It's again, it's kind of user preference, really.
So then there's I don't know what you'd call it, a sometimes buffered bike lane on East Marginal.
Right. It is a full bike lane the entire way, but like you said, there's varying degrees of separation depending where you are between there and when it links up with the Elliott Bay Trail on the north end.
And this street is slated for a major reconstruction project, which will include much better bike lanes.
That's right.
But that's not going to help you right now.
Not right now.
So,
another option with East Marginal too, and some folks do this as well, is they ride on the west side of the street on the sidewalk there. That's probably 12 feet wide. It's a nice way to separate yourself from traffic too, if that's what folks are interested in.
yeah, if this is the part that makes you most nervous, then
Yep.
maybe that's a good option. Great, and then when you get up to South Massachusetts, kind of right by the Coast Guard,
Right.
what do you do? Do you stay on the road, or do you try to cross over and get onto the sidewalk there?
So I take the lane on Alaska once I get close to I think it's called a gore point, right, where vehicles have to cross over the bike lane to make that right on the is that South Massachusetts there or not? Let's see.
It's between Massachusetts and Atlantic.
Yeah, I mean I can see it in my head. I just can't
Yeah.
think of what they are right now. But yeah, I generally stay on the on that east side of the street and pop up on the curb and then get on the trail.
Okay. And then you get up to a light, and you'll see a trail entrance directly in front of you.
Yeah,
And then,
it is very hard to miss. It's nice, newly repaved, super wide, really nice established trail.
great. And then that trail takes you all the way. So if you're going to the ferry terminal, then you're pretty much there. Just stay on the sidewalk,
That's right.
another block and you're at the ferry terminal.
Yep.
But if you're going to go downtown, I would say most people probably best off taking King down to either Occidental or what is that street even called there? Oh, it is called Second.
Yeah, second's the one further east. Yeah, I take Occidental. It's just kind of nice
Yeah,
to ride through the cobblestone, and it does kind of catch a break because it's mostly parking lot, and people walking around, not necessarily cars.
yeah, and I guess normally I would avoid Occidental in certain times of day because it can get really busy and packed.
Sure.
But I'm guessing that's not an issue right now. But
Based on my experience the last couple of weeks, it's been dead. Nothing
yeah,
down there at all.
great. And then Occidental, you can take that all the way to Yesler, and then you'll see a bike lane, and then that bike lane connects to the Second Avenue bike lane, and now
Right.
you're connected to the downtown bike network.
The big network. That's right.
So now let's talk about how do you get to that bike trail nexus, I guess you call it, underneath the West Seattle Bridge. Like, there's a bunch of different ways. So,
Sure. Yeah, maybe we'll start north and work our way south.
sure.
Yeah. So coming from the north, whether you're on Alki in the Averill district, a couple different options. There's a pretty nice trail established along Harbor Avenue around Alki. It's super wide. I take that mornings when I don't have to drop my kid off at daycare. It's nice, quiet. There's walkers and other bikers out there. Everyone has plenty of space. That basically drops you right up to that Y intersection. You continue following the sidewalk down to what's that intersection by the Chelan Cafe, the big five-way weird intersection. You basically just you look for the marked bikeway to get across that intersection that has a light that actually is triggered by bicycles, and use that to get up on the Spokane Street Bridge. Once you get down there, you can see it. It's a straight shot, straight up.
Right. Great. And then so, where should we go next?
I think focusing more on that north area, Harbor Avenue Southwest is the primary feeder down there. I mean, if you want to get into the specifics of other ways, I see people come down Admiral Way as well.
Yeah.
If you like a 35 mile an hour, blast downhill to start your day, another option, probably not for most folks who are considering getting into biking.
Okay.
Fairmount Ave is another great way to kind of start the morning. Nice downhill through a street that makes you feel like you're not in the city. It's really nice actually.
Right.
Nice way to get down from the Admiral area. But again, these all feed down to Harbor Avenue.
Okay.
Take the way we come. Kind of coming from the more central portion of West Seattle, say around the junction. The Avalon Way, Southwest Avalon Way was recently rechannelized to include a full bike lane on both sides. It's been pretty nice riding down that recently. That feeds you right down to that same intersection just coming from the south. What's different here, some folks do continue to take that all the way down to that Y intersection to get on the trail that way once they cross under the West Seattle Bridge. A lot of folks also make the right-hand turn onto Southwest Yancey Street and kind of weave back behind this West Seattle Health Club and ultimately come out on Delridge.
Okay. You end up on Andover.
Right, you come down Andover, and then once you get to Delridge, hang a left there and cross that intersection, put you on the sidewalk, which will feed into that same trail we were talking about earlier.
So let's say you're all the way, like, you're kind of in the far west, or even as far as Lincoln Park area.
Sure.
What do you recommend? Going all the way around along the seaside, or making the climb?
Well, it depends. I mean, the beach side, nice and flat for the most part, but I mean, it's gonna easily triple your mileage. Fauntleroy, it's nice. I mean, it's a hill, but it's not. Relatively speaking, here in Seattle, it's pretty benign. There's a lot of bikes on it all throughout the year, so I think most drivers in that area, are familiar and look for cars all the time, and it's a pretty straightforward, heavily used bike corridor. So that would
Mm-hmm.
be my preference if I was going to do it.
We're talking about like White Center.
Yeah. I actually uh, a gentleman in my building downtown. I see in the bike locker commutes from White Center, and I know he comes down Delridge. I think that's kind of the primary
Mm-hmm.
mode for those folks. Basically taking 16th Ave Southwest and hooking that into Delridge and taking that kind of straight shot all the way down.
There is an existing neighborhood greenway that has improvements coming. That is mostly usable. I think that for most people, it's hillier. It's got some weird zigs and zags.
Sure.
But for most people, like, it's going to be a little better a little more comfortable than Delridge Way,
Right.
which has bike lanes for some sections and sometimes no bike lane, or sometimes a bike lane on one side but not the other.
Right.
And it's Delridge is the flattest way, it's the most direct way, so a lot of people still bike it. But you can make your way through the neighborhood just to the east of Delridge Way, and there's a signed route that goes all the way from White Center that you can follow. Just be patient, because sometimes you'll cross the same street like twice within a couple
Yes.
blocks, and you're like pulling your hair out, like, is this a trick? Um, and then there's one point where you can get around this, but there is one point where it turns into a staircase. But there might be sections where you'll bike on 16th Avenue Southwest instead of the neighborhood route, just because it's so much faster and more direct. But you can do it. It's mostly calm along the way. Has been my experience.
Yeah.
It's not super stressful. And then there is one tricky spot along that route, where Southwest Dawson Street merges into 21st Avenue Southwest, which is the Greenway route, for
Right.
like the span of a block or two, and then the main arterial route diverges onto 22nd Avenue Southwest, and 21st Avenue Southwest becomes a slow residential street again. And that one stretch is kind of stressful. There is a sidewalk on the west side of the street that is not really wide enough for multiple people biking to pass each other comfortably, but it might be it's there, and so you'll find your way across. It's not the most comfortable stretch. But then once you're on 21st Avenue Southwest, you can follow the signs. There's neighborhood greenway signs that will take you all the way on neighborhood streets to Pigeon Point, they call it, which is, you feel like you're just biking into this dead end of like a neighborhood street, and then there's this little trail that kind of comes out of nowhere, and you go down a hill on that trail, and then suddenly, boom, you're on you connect with the trail from Delridge, and now you're underneath the bridge again, it's kind of magical because there's several points along the way where you're just convinced, like, there's no way this is going to get me.
Going the wrong way.
Yeah. There's no way this is going to work, and then it does work. We should talk about the Duwamish Trail.
Generally good, easy passage. Pretty well established. I think there are a few driveways that you need to cross that just need to exercise a bit more caution.
It almost connects to the Green River Trail
Right.
that goes through several South King County municipalities, which is a lovely trail. There's this gap where you have to kind of bike on the side of 99 it's so short, and then there's a bike route through South Park that connects to the Duwamish Trail. So if you're coming from the South Park Bridge or from neighborhoods south of there is a connection that you can find. Follow the signage. It'll lead you there. The Duwamish Trail, once you're on it, it's pretty straightforward. There's a connection across the First Avenue South Bridge, which a lot of people may not be familiar with. It's a little it's especially confusing to find on the Georgetown side if you've never done it before. So if you're following the map, like on your phone or something, you'll probably be looking at the line on your map and looking up into the real world and saying, "There's no way this is right." It is right. It is right. You will get there. But you basically like you'll be biking through what feels like just like a tractor trailer graveyard. And you're like this. There's no way this is the way to the bridge, but it is. And then suddenly there's this like nice ramp entrance. It's in pretty good condition, and it's actually pretty nice, protected, safe connection across the bridge that will kind of fling you around and dump you onto the sidewalk on Highland Park Way Southwest, and then you'll wrap around and then you'll follow. The trail runs along the east side of West Marginal Way, almost all the way to the bridge. All right.
Almost.
Almost. So you go past the Duwamish Longhouse and Cultural Center, kind of right past the Longhouse.
And then you're on the other side of the street from that point. Is that correct? Does that sound right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's just a sidewalk. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing more to it than a sidewalk. I think they do have signage that guides you through. So if you're worried about getting lost, you can still follow the signs. Just unfortunately, like it's just a sidewalk. Um, Nothing is not. It is not a trail, but we call it a trail, I guess. And again, you might feel like, okay, this can't be the right way. But you'll end up at feeling like you're going just kind of into an alley behind some industrial businesses at Southwest Dakota Street,
Street, right.
which won't look like much of a street to you. It really just feels like a driveway. But follow the signs. There are signs, and they'll lead you up this alleyway behind a bunch of businesses, and then you'll end up on. How does it actually end up? Oh yeah, you end up in another alley, but it feels like an alley. Southwest Marginal Place, I guess, is its official name. And you'll wind up, and then you'll go under the bridge, and it'll turn into a trail underneath the bridge, and then all of a sudden, there it is. You're connected to the same trail that we were talking about before. Yeah, I guess it's that's almost one of the challenges of biking in West Seattle is that so many of these routes, it helps to have already known about them because it's not so hard once you know where they are and that they're there and you can trust that they will connect. But when you're first starting, you just might not believe it.
It is, and that kind of adds to the intimidation and reluctance that some people may have to bike commuting. But again, find a buddy. There's someone that does it every day. Even a complete stranger on the side of the road that you see on a bike, ask them, and they're going to be a nice person and show you exactly where to go.
Great.
Oh, I think another option too. Depending on how social distancing recommendations go, the water taxi is another option for bicyclists as well. I can't remember what the capacity is for the boat, but it can hold a dozen or more bikes for each trip. If you find yourself, just not wanting to ride most of the way home one day, you can put your bike in the water taxi and do it that way. Same thing with buses as well. The carriers in the front can hold at least 3 bikes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking all this time to talk to me about this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all the work that you do in West Seattle Bike Connections does. It's always important, but now it's suddenly very important again, unexpectedly. I hope that, this helps people get where they need to go. And I hope that the bridge is not closed for too long and is not too expensive to fix.
Yeah.
But that's